This meeting is being recorded.
Oh, we're already up to 26. All right. I muted her. Yeah. There is somebody on, whose phone number is 647-1531, so I can note your name for the annual meeting.
It's Angie Young.
Angie Bingham.
Angie Bingham, thank you, Angie.
Angie Young.
Oh, Angie Young.
I haven't been Angie Bingham for a long time.
Kathleen,
That's your maiden name.
sorry, thank you very much. Okay, we got even more on this, but we've already done through this one, so. Now I need my agenda. And your minutes. All right, good, good. Thank you very much for your patience.
Okay, agenda one, call to order verification of meeting notice.
Was posted on the web.
Two then, roll call, please.
Mrs. Blazinski. Here. Mr. Brisboy.
Here.
Mrs. Variance.
Here.
Mr. Lewis.
Here.
Mr. Manning.
Back
Mrs. Peterson.
Here.
Mrs. Rowe.
Here.
Okay, three then, approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Been moved by Mr. Brisboy to approve the agenda as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
By Mrs. France, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Four then, old business. Is there any old business? Seeing none, then we'll move into five, new business, 5.1, discussion possible action on the 2020-2021 tax levy.
I would make the motion that we accept the 2020-2021 tax levies as presented at the annual meeting.
That's good, Cheryl? That's,
Yeah, I have.
Do you need the numbers?
To approve the 2021 tax levy in the amount of $1,491,613, of which $1,038,206 is for the operations and $453,407 is for the debt service.
what she said, right?
Right.
That's
It's right here.
Mrs. Peterson's motion. Is there a second?
I'll second all that.
By Mrs. Blazinski. Roll call, please.
Okay, Mrs. Blazinski.
Yes.
Mr. Brisboy.
Yes.
Mrs. Variance.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. Manning.
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson.
Yes.
Mrs. Rowe.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. 5.2 then, discussion possible action on adoption of 2021 budget.
So I need a motion to approve the 2021 budget for all funds with receipts and disbursements being equal to, in the amount of $6,882,072.21.
It's been moved by Mr. Manning. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Rowe. Roll call, please.
Mr. Brisboy.
Yes.
Mrs. Variance.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. Manning.
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson.
Yes.
Mrs. Rowe.
Yeah.
Mrs. Blazinski.
Yes.
Okay. 5.3 then, discussion possible action on opening or closing or other issues that arise due to COVID-19. Use of thermometers and metrics.
All right, so last time we talked, we were talking, we brought up the issue of thermometers, and the admin felt more comfortable bringing it up again and having you guys make a motion that we don't need to use thermometers versus us just stopping so that it's public record. The reason we would like to stop using thermometers, and we want to use them as long as possible, but it's too cold outside and the thermometers don't work then. So if you're comfortable with that, we would, we'd like at least another discussion of it, if not a motion.
So you're looking for a motion like to use at your discretion?
Yeah.
And what I would like to see, Steve, is the COVID checklist that we use to check kids when they don't feel good, to highly encourage parents to use that daily at home. And their temperature is one of the many, so, but the thermometers do not work outside.
Then you'll probably send that out as a reminder again.
Yep, and that's what other districts around are using.
Any discussion? Questions?
Anybody have any questions on that?
I would move to approve the use of thermometers at the discretion of the school administration and staff, and then to also issue a update to the parents and all parties involved with the school of the change in the protocols for COVID testing and COVID, whatever you want to, however you want to word it, checklist, the COVID checklist.
The COVID checklist.
Been moved by Mr. Brisbois. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Ferriant. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Other discussion on.
So we're trying to do too many things at once. All right, I wanted to share the metrics. Cheryl, I typed those in the second half of that, so Mr. Brisbois and Mrs. Ferguson are not pink. You'll have to move them up to the blackboard.
Okay.
Thank you. So the metrics I shared at the current status versus last month, October 12th, I shared in my admin report the metrics. So last October 12th, there was 300 people positive in the county, 181 active cases, 114 released, 11 in the hospital, ever hospitalized, and 5 deaths. Today, there is 449 cases, 189 active cases, 252 released from quarantine, 23 ever hospitalized, and 8 deaths. If you look at the trajectory from my original report, let's see if I can make this bigger.
Julie, can you turn your screen so everybody can see that?
I will. I thought we were going to put it on the big screen, but I'm going to make it kind of big here. There we go. Oh, I don't want to knock the thing off. So the trajectory, this is last month, and you can see as it was going, it's going up. It's a little flatter here. And these are like October 8th, October 10th. So these are day to day. And then today's dashboard. And again, October 12th, 15th, 18th, and you can see the last 4 or 5 days. There's definitely a trend. The orange dots are going up. I hope you guys can see that. I'm sorry. We should have put it on the big screen. So there is a trend going up for the since the 18th. This is the flat part that was when we made our decision to close for 3 weeks, and this is since then, kind of. So just so you know, the numbers aren't getting any better. So that's just the metrics that I promised that I would share, that we would have that ability to look at and digest. If you were to ask me how many students have been diagnosed or anything, I have no idea, because we haven't had students.
Does the county give you percentage of demographics of who is testing positive?
No,
Because my county, Grant County does do that.
I can ask for them, but
That would be nice. From the meetings I've been sitting in, granted, this is Grant County, but the numbers are of less than 18 has dropped it was less than 8%. Based on today's meeting, the demographic has shifted now from the less than 30s to the over 50-year-olds. That's the higher percentage now. In Grant County, I do not know what it is in Richland.
And I didn't think to ask that. I will say that there have been quite a few studies done, and there's lots of them are still in progress. But one of them was done on students, the rate of COVID before a season and the rate of COVID after a season. And I don't remember if it was volleyball or football and it's negotiable. Negligible, thank you. The number of students that get it while playing sports is negligible.
Right.
So and the same thing, they're not getting it at school. Their kids are bringing it to school from home, but kids aren't usually getting it at school because school is the safer place, according to some of the papers I've been reading, and I can probably send you all that stuff, but I read quite a bit about it.
So to answer Ron, Julie, if you go to the current dashboard, it does break it down by demographics.
Oh, I can go to the
So,
live. That's what this.
The 10 to 19-year-olds, and it says Richland County cases by age range. 10 to 19 are 46 cases, 20 to 29 are 70 cases, 30 to 39 are 73 cases, 40 to 49, 60, 50 to 59, 69 cases, 60 to 69, 49, and then it goes down a little. The 0 to 9-year-old, we have 12 cases in the county.
But it's not telling you of those what's active, right?
No, it said, no, it says last update a minute ago, so it's current, but not,
But it's from the beginning till now.
right.
So that's not telling us what's active age-wise.
So there isn't a huge difference except with the 0 to 9. Otherwise, the numbers are in the upper 40s to the low 60s.
Well, there's a pretty big jump from 18-year-olds to, once you get to the 20-year-olds and that, it's
Working,
pretty steady.
Yeah. So just to compare Sauk County's numbers right now, from Friday, they have a positive 57. 57 new cases since Friday. They did, a news article did say there were 2 weddings in Sauk County in the last 2 weeks, and that's where they're tracing it back to. So again, we're told not to go to large gatherings.
Here we go, by age range.
And we can close the stuff that closes the bars then.
Yeah,
There was also on Sauk County, they have.
This is by age range.
Okay.
They had an article that was, one second. From October 22nd, letter to the editor on herd immunity.
oh, yeah, the Barrington report.
And it's just saying that it was going to be released by Sauk County. But anyway, it's just saying that it would require most of the herd to get infected, which would overwhelm our healthcare system. So, yeah.
Part of the healthcare system issue is that the nursing homes are not taking COVID patients that are recovering after their whatever, they're not taking them back in the nursing home. So then they end up staying in the hospital, taking up that bed. So that's part of, at least in our area, that's what's happening.
And part of that is because they treat the nursing homes different. They're really penalized
Yeah.
versus what they're really not being very fair to like our Pine Valleys and places like that. So they don't dare take them back.
Where are we at as far as staff members? I know last time we had like 5 staff members out. I'm assuming with this,
We have 1 still out. We have 1 that can return tomorrow. We have 1 that potentially will be out due to travel.
So we're sitting pretty good, actually.
Right now, that could change in 3 days.
Yes, it
Actually, we
can
have
change.
2 staff out still. 2 staff are out. 1 recovering and 1 in quarantine.
What are other districts using to make this decision? I mean, my understanding, Richland Center closed on county numbers and then reopened on district numbers.
Yeah, it's all over the board. So I can tell you Weston is virtual until October 30th. Richland obviously is back. River Valley's in person. Riverdale's in
Except for River
person.
Valley Middle School, they're virtual.
Middle school is virtual.
Okay, middle school is virtual. And then Hillsborough went virtual until November 4th due to staff, not due to students. We did also poll our staff today just because I'm going to ask them. 79.5% would prefer that we stay virtual, and 20.5% said they would like to be in person. And the reasons are all over the board. Somebody said I can get more content covered, not having to have all the other non-academic things to contend with. So distancing and hand washing and sanitizing and quarantine materials and hybrid teaching takes up a lot of the day. This is the only way we can ensure that students are not exposed while at school. In person is best for students. I'm assuming I'm part of my Marty, but I think kids are safer here with us than at home. So the staff is really all over as is. We're definitely not different than any other school, so.
Julie, I hate to interrupt. I just got a message. There are people trying to get in, but it's not letting them in. And apparently the agenda says use the annual meeting agenda.
Okay, so I have to take that off the.
So there are people that are trying to get in that aren't able.
Thank you.
So initially, we had said that practice could start today. Did that start?
No, actually, Mr. Thome said this morning, he goes, oh, it was? So.
I had the same question, so perhaps the football coach in my family, we can't start till tomorrow, you guys have to meet about it. Like, no, you're missing a day of practice.
So I needed a clarification on the metrics. Last time you said it was 181 active, and I just want to make sure that I heard correctly that today the active cases for Richland County is 189.
It's 187 for today.
187. So it's just 6 more active than 2 weeks ago.
Well, that means people that went out of quarantine, they're no longer considered active.
Right, so some could have shifted over to the other.
Recovered.
I guess
Recovered, yeah.
to me, it says we're leveling off, but
What's the participation rate for kids as far as virtual learning goes? Are we getting 100% participation rate?
No, but we don't get that during the school year either.
Yeah, face to face.
Yeah, we have, I can tell you that we have the vast majority of the students are participating to the best of their ability, and so are the parents. There's a couple of families that are a little bit more hands-off with their kids, and so they let the kids make some decisions. Mrs. Shane and Mr. Lechner are both on top of all of those families. It's rare that one kid in a family will work really hard and the other one won't. So it's usually a family thing. I don't even know the percentage. 10 families maybe.
Well, I think during the school year, we're normally at like 93%. We're probably 85 to 88%.
So yes.
And elementary is high. I mean, we just had conferences, we had 91.5% attendance for conferences. So my average is 92 to 95 regular in person. So my families are very well involved and they want their kids involved as well.
So I talked to the teachers too and had pretty much the same results you did, probably like, 80-20 and lots of different comments. One suggestion that kind of took me by surprise at first, but then when I asked for the rationale was that
I mean, 80% of them want to be virtual. But somebody suggested that we do virtual, but then allow sports. And I said, well, how do you justify that if it's not safe enough for us to be at school? And they're like, well, because sports is a choice and some people don't think it's as dangerous. So those people are allowed to make the choice. And then perhaps because they're able to be in sports, they need to keep their grades up. So maybe it would encourage them to do the virtual more too. So I thought that was an interesting thought process. I never would have thought of it because it doesn't seem to make sense, but it is a choice. They don't have a choice if they can go to school or not. So, you know, the ones who maybe don't think it's as dangerous and think it's fine still would have the choice to do sports. And then everybody who is worried about it and thinks it's dangerous, still protected by virtual. So.
And I've heard some districts doing the other way, going in person, and if you choose to do sports, they're virtual.
Yes, and I did have 2 teachers who voted for in-person said with no sports. So then there was that side of it too. So, yeah, like you said, you know, kind of.
Right. It's just, you know, you gotta look at all the different, we could decrease the number of students in the building in the middle school and high school. We don't really need to because we can fit them all in the rooms, socially distanced. It was very time consuming to clean between every single class for the high school teachers. And I said, well, that's what you guys wanted to do. So we were gonna, you know, cohort them. Some districts are saying that they are virtual 100%, but again, the sports is their choice. If they want to do that, that's fine. It's all over the board. Some of them are closing, like Richland, you said, was virtual for one building now. We're all one building. We don't have that much variation. We were doing pretty good before we closed, and we were just wanted to make sure that our parents our parents knew ahead of time, and I think that was key to helping our parents.
Are we in a better spot in terms of we come back to school, everybody's here, and the county says, no, we're shutting everything down? Are we in a better spot because of the break? Like, are we more prepared? Or is the back and forth an issue?
A couple people have commented that it's harder on everybody when you do start, stop kind of a thing. The people that have chosen virtual, they're like, whatever, they're, you know, still doing it. It's the families that were caught a little unprepared, much as we said, please make sure you have a backup plan, because we don't get to choose sometimes if we close. And that's my concern, that if we were to say, yep, we're going to open, and then the county says, no, we can't be open anymore.
Or we have an outbreak of staffing and then we're done anyway.
Right. That's my worry, that that's really hard. It's harder on families to have 2 days in and 2 days out, and, you know.
The unknown.
Yeah, but we can't predict anything.
Almost all of the teachers brought up how hard the hybrid was doing, you know, the online kids and the in-person kids, and just the revolving door. I think they talked about the revolving door. Some kids will come in virtual for a couple of days and then go back home for a couple of days, and then that made it really hard too. And I think that's why some of them wanted virtual, because it's been easier for the teachers to handle it. Another suggestion was made, this is not really about going virtual or not, but that doing blocks, like do the odd virtual days one morning and have the classes be a little longer, and then do the even courses, the even hours, whatever, the next day. So then the classes can be a little longer than 25 minutes and you're still hitting them all, because the length of them was, it was just brought up, so I'm suggesting it. There was another metaphor about, we're always saying what's best for the children. And what's best for the children is happy and healthy teachers. But you brought up the metaphor of oxygen masks in an airplane, where they advise the adults to put theirs on first, because if you're struggling to breathe, you can't help anyone else. And I think a lot of the teachers felt like they were drowning with the hybrid, is the feeling I was getting.
Well, and to compare other districts, so Richland had advertised that they had hired virtual teachers, and they did. But if you're a virtual student, you might get an hour with that teacher every day. You're not getting it all day long. And then in River Valley, they have enough sections that they were able to shift in their elementary shift the in-person to the grade level teachers, and one grade level teacher would be assigned to all virtual of that grade level. So, you know, versus like Hillsborough and Greensburg, and, you know, we're doing this both at the same time. It is extremely hard. And you may have grade lesson and ready to go, but if you got two kids that can't get on or they're goofing around, it shoots the whole day, you know, so.
Does administration have that recommendation one way or another?
I'm torn. I think it's best that the kids be in school because we know that's the best education for them. But it's way harder on the teachers to do that, two different kinds of teaching at one time.
Well, and truthfully, neither group, whether they're a virtual kid or an in-person kid, get 100% when they're split,
Right.
because your attention is split in the classroom.
Had you asked me, I mean, I was definitely, and let's stay in person until we've had these 2 weeks now. And I can see the teachers' anxiety starting to slowly drop, not gone. But, and that's what I see. I don't see it from the kid part. I see it from the teacher part because I'm here, I'm not working with the kids.
I had a few of the teachers actually say that the kids seem happier now too. They can see their friends' faces and they seem more relaxed too because they're not constantly being told to get away from that kid, don't touch that one's pencil, fix your mask, you know, so I did have a few teachers mention that too.
There you go.
That they've gotten some positive feedback from parents, even at the parent-teacher meetings too, so. But everyone was sure to say, this is just my experience and I know not everyone agrees, so.
I guess my opinion, my 2 cents worth on it, when we talked about doing it, we talked about doing it for that, you know, that break, that period in there to, you know, give that 2-week quarantine and that 2-week period, you know, to slow things down. You know, there was quite a bit of discussion in there about, you know, that time, that ending time, you know, having that, you know, not just, well, we'll just keep going, you know, and I think, you know, I think the case is the kids aren't gonna, we know they're not getting into school. So as far as safety, you know, most of our staff members that have gotten exposed to it haven't got exposed at school. They've been exposed other places. People that want to stay virtual can still stay virtual. You know, we kind of said, in my mind, that we were going to do the 2 weeks to try and slow the spread, you know, dampen the curve. Looks like the numbers have kind of leveled off.
No, they haven't.
I'd like to see them back in school. That's just my opinion. I think we know, we've heard a lot of challenges with internet, with, you know, kids
Attendance.
getting on, and I think some of those kids, you know, it's not their fault. We don't have good internet in a lot of places. They don't have that choice.
Sam will make a goofy face.
Okay, your section is better. The other one is.
Does somebody online have something they want to say? Can't figure out who's not muted.
Steve, I've had a,
I think it's Jill Plonka, Julie.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Luckner.
oh, I thought she was ready. I have had some parents ask me if their kids could come virtual or come in person only a couple days a week. You know, initially we had said that you were either virtual or you were in person. And we've made some adjustments with some kids that had said they wanted to be virtual and then it just didn't work out. And we brought them in as long as we had room in the classrooms. But what's your thought on that?
What is the purpose of that?
I guess to minimize their, in the parents' opinion, their exposure, the kids' exposure.
Julie, check the chat, please.
Kirsten Rasmussen says, I 100% agree with Steve, leave the option to the family. Juli Thompson says, if we would have been in the building today for in-person learning, we would have needed 5 subs, only 2 for non-illnesses. That to me is an issue. And Heather Muckler, I agree with Steve. My daughter states that she definitely learns more at school than virtual. It's better for the kids for them to be here.
Can you be quiet and not say anything?
You know, and I 100% feel for the teachers. I mean, I know it's not great. It's not even good situation. You know, but you got to look at the same thing the parents. It puts the parents in, especially with the younger kids, in a tough situation. So, you know, I guess my opinion, giving just why I voted to go virtual for 2 weeks, was the teachers. You know, to make sure that we slowed that ramping up down, and we didn't expose the teachers as much in that 2 weeks, and hopefully we broke some of that off. I just think that in these situations, we're not going to have a normal, we're not going to have a really good situation. Something's going to be different and harder.
There's 2 more chats. I don't see how elementary students are being factored into this at all. There is no way virtual is better for the young kids or their families. It's Jody Abarca. Chad Cleary, please consider the mental health of the students. It does impact their physical and mental health. Students learning virtually has increased suicide rates amongst teenagers exponentially. In Wisconsin, students are still commiserating regardless. Heather Owen, speaking as a staff member who has tested positive and recovered, it makes me very uneasy to return to everyone returning to the building.
Julie, this is Juli Thompson. I wondered if I could just say a few things real quick.
Yes.
I am 100% on the fence with this because as an employee in the district, I'm pretty well aware that I think I disagree with Steve that it's not in the building. I think it had been in the building. We just didn't have families who were being 100% transparent about some of the symptoms going on in their home. But I also think I've spoke with Mr. Lechner and with Ms. Bevan. There are students who are at risk for not graduating. And I think that's a huge thing we need to consider. Like Jody Abarca said, we have elementary students who do not learn best in a virtual setting, but we have students that we limped along in the spring that we're finally getting back on track to graduate. And I see that we're losing some of that progress.
You know, I don't know about districts our size. I don't know like what Weston has done, but I do know the majority of the other schools has brought on extra help. You know, they've just brought in extra people. I mean, Dodgeville, the number of extras is, you know, and I know maybe they have more money or whatever. And I don't know what our districts have done, but you know, I think our kids need to be back. But I also think when you have 80% of your staff that are very leery about coming back, we have to look at what can we do to alleviate some of that. I mean, would it be, if we could even find people, you know, that's the other thing. We're in a county that kind of prefers not to work. You know, if it would mean bringing on a few more paras and that, just so that there would be some extra hands to give them that assistance.
Kirsten Rasmussen says, how is it any different than anyone else that has to go to work and can potentially be exposed and bring it home to our families? It is everywhere, and it doesn't matter if you are home or virtual. Sorry, in person or virtual.
Well, I think there is a difference because we're asking them to do 2 things. There is a difference. If you go to your job, you're probably doing what your job duties are, and to literally be trying to manage virtual and the face-to-face. There is a difference.
I think
Yeah,
the
that
point
makes
is
it really
the
tough.
contracting it.
Oh,
Not
contract.
I'm assuming that was there before you made it. I think that's an excellent point that you made about bringing on extra help and that, you know, if we've, you know, and that's sometimes as you go in and do these things, you kind of start to see the holes in your you know, your job or your program, and you go, okay, hey, we need to shore that up. And, you know, those are maybe things that, you know, that by the next meeting, you know, we could have some recommendations or some, you know, even
Yeah.
potentially start looking for people that might be able to come in, you know, even if they can't, you know, be in a room or do it all day, but they even could swing through, you know, and help in one room one day or one in another if we can't get enough to fill the positions.
I never thought of that. That's a really good idea.
Half is better than nothing until we would potentially get enough people to.
Yep.
This is an action item, and it would fall within an action item, how I interpret the agenda.
I don't know if we could.
Well, we can't fill it back, but you could post it,
Exactly.
could you not?
Yep.
Give authorization.
Authorization to post, yeah.
And I think the admin team, you know, give them that brainstorming of what they actually think, if it would be a couple more teachers, if it would be some more paras. But, you know, I do think, you can see the stress and strain on some of these people where it's.
We're trying to decide if we stay virtual or not.
Janelle Jones says, I completely agreed until I have witnessed a young girl with a positive COVID test. To see and watch her struggle has changed my view. If we can protect our kids and staff, let's. Melissa Sprecher says, one of the challenges as a middle school, high school teacher with 100% virtual is trying to get a hold of kids and families of students who are absent, trying to keep them caught up, getting them to attend class. And Rita Perdue says, please consider the families, no matter how prepared we were supposed to be, we're not. It's not easy going in person, then to virtual, back to in person, or having to go back to virtual.
But they have to realize that if public health steps in, we don't have a choice. We've talked about this since summer, that this could be a very bouncy back and forth type of year. I mean, there are things that are not in our control.
So I have a question, as the person that does the subs in the mornings, at what point is it too much for the staff that we're, you know, is it 8 people out? Is it 5 people out? Because on that Tuesday before this meeting, I couldn't stretch one more person. We were that thin. And that can happen in 2 days, it can happen tomorrow. People get phone calls or what. And at what point is it, do we need another meeting? I just need to know, because I called Juli that morning at 5:30, trying to figure out how to just supervise the kids in the building. And it's still guaranteed lunch for the teachers. You know, that's something to think about. And I know the teachers, you know, because subs are so hard, they're tired. I mean, physically tired. And so then your immunity is down and now it's flu season. I want us to be prepared for what's the number, and it can be kind of flux, but it also can depend on, I can call the 6 people I got on the list. If none of them are available, then I'm trying to figure out, okay, who can watch those 4 recesses? Who can watch those study halls? Because I got to take my trained paras and put them in a classroom. I mean, those are the logistics, and we're trying not to mingle kids. We're trying to continue that 6 feet distance. Those are things that at 5 in the morning, when people are calling, they're not feeling well. That's my concern. I don't want them to say, well, I'll be okay. I just have. No, if you don't feel well, don't come. And I don't want them to feel they have to. But I do appreciate the parents, and I believe strongly it is best for kids to be in the building. But if we're not healthy, we can't be in the building. And then they can't do it from home either.
Right.
You know, so that's, and like Janelle mentioned, that's a young woman. That is a woman just out of high school age. That isn't, you know, a 50-year-old woman like myself, a young woman. I mean, so these are real struggles. There's a Janesville high school girl that is struggling, you know, honor student, 3 months after recovery. She's dropping classes. She has this fog. They don't necessarily recover all the time.
Who wanted to talk?
I just want to jump in. This is Brittany. Penfield. Kind of just piggybacking off what Kathleen is saying. I guess obviously for all of our kiddos, it's best to be back in person, and we want to be back in person. But like if we start losing our staff members, you will lose your quality teachers for your kids if we're having to be out for a couple of weeks and we're sick. So they're losing that quality education if we can't be healthy enough to be there. So like to me, I feel like my kids can learn best from me through a screen better than if they had someone in my place. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there, just knowing that like, obviously this isn't ideal, but they are getting the best that they can if it's us still, no matter what. And I just venture to say that all of our teachers are doing a really good job at doing what they're doing and doing their very best, and that you'd want that for your child too. So I'm just putting it out there as far as keeping us going and your child's teacher at the same time, if that's something to consider as well.
Well, I know there are districts, and it's been on the news, that aren't going to be open. And it is more due to staffing issues than student issues that they're going virtual. Yeah, I mean, it's so
This is Paula Boland.
Hi, Paula.
Sorry. Hi. Just if the kids decide to go virtual, then they're in person, and then they go virtual and they're in person. A lot of the teachers are struggling right now with the grading on Schoology, because if things are coming in late, or if the kids decide to go virtual after they decided to be in person and they don't have all their supplies at home because it was a quick decision or something, I don't know what everyone's thinking, but the grading has been a struggle on how to keep up with it, because there's been a lot of late work because kids don't have what they need at home, or they come to school, and when they were at school, I mean, I'm getting more assignments turned in while they've been virtual than when they were in person. But if we do come back in person, if they are virtual, they stay virtual for an X amount of time, or they're in person. They cannot flip-flop, because that makes it very, very challenging. Even more on top of everything else.
And we have had parents specifically ask that we can do that. That they can allow their kids to come once or twice a week instead of all 4 days. Jennifer Walden says Southwest Tech is doing a great job handling the situation. Their numbers have been kept low. They understand the importance of a good education and not sacrificing the education and mental health. As soon as a student has the symptoms, they are sent home until they have a negative test and symptom-free. If there's a positive test, then that class goes virtual for 2 weeks. They have had a few classes having to go virtual on our back.
So from my understanding is, even after you've had it, it takes 3 or 4 months for you to actually test negative, because your body's still building the immunities to it. So even if you test, you're gonna have a positive test, so what then?
Yeah, and they won't test you to get you, they won't allow you to test in our county to allow you to, so I need to have a positive test or a negative test to come back. They won't do that here.
Right.
That's why our numbers are kind of skewed. We're not testing like other counties.
Correct. Our numbers are
So our
skewed.
numbers, we probably have twice of what's up there, easily.
And if one in the household is positive, everybody, you just assume positive. So if you have 5 people and you only test 1, that's 1 number on the, instead of 5. But what Jenny described, that is what we were doing prior. Kids still tested. We ran through the checklist, sent home for a minimum of 14 days.
Any other questions, comments?
I just have a correction. River Valley Middle School was back in person today. They were only off for 2 weeks.
They were off 2 weeks, right, Shelley?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And that was public health, I believe. The Sauk County Public Health, that,
I think that's who made that decision.
yeah.
That's what I heard. I just checked with my sister to make
Yeah.
sure that was the case. weeks.
And it was supposed to be 2 weeks. I didn't know when it ended.
I didn't either. I knew they were out 2 weeks ago.
And then Mr. Thome wanted me to ask also, it's part of the discussion, but a small part, with us starting a new sports season, some of the districts are playing games on Wednesdays. And they want to know if that's something that we would have.
Can I speak on this?
Yeah, go ahead, Zach.
It was just to get, I mean, I only had one actually ask, and it was Wednesday, the 23rd of December, but we as ADs are talking because the seasons are starting later, ending earlier. Everything's so condensed, trying to still find time to get games in just to have that open. And the schools that I've talked to, they've all said yes. We're not purposely trying to schedule a bunch of Wednesdays, but it's just giving that option because seasons are 3 to 4 weeks shorter than normal when you're still trying to get all your conference games in. So it could be a challenge, especially with winter weather and cancellations. And even for spring sports, the same concept with spring rain weather, trying to fit a schedule in.
That opens the door that's been tried to be opened for many, many years. And I think like the 23rd of December, some of the churches might actually be having their programs with their kids.
That's true. That is true, respectfully. But we have kids that are missing an awful lot too, an awful lot. Now, I'm not saying, but if the other conferences are going that way, if other schools in our conference, I think we at least need to be open-minded under these very unique circumstances.
It was all the ADs were on favor of doing it as just an option, but not like we're going to schedule every Wednesday throughout the winter. Or I'm guessing the same concept will be brought up in the spring. If we have a rainy spring and we're still trying to get the season in, and a third of the season's cut out for lengthwise as normal, it's going to be kind of tight. So just for rescheduling, that's more of a challenge with winter and spring because we get school cancellations.
Even though this falls under the agenda item, for COVID issues, I would much rather see this put on and posted and put on another agenda item, because I think there's a lot of potential backlash that could happen that people not knowing this would be put on here and discussed. We're opening up a can of worms that I think people have the right to know we're going to talk about it. So
That works for me, thank you.
From the chat, Julie or Angie Bingham Young can't get on. She said, wanted to ask if there is concern with increased exposure over the holidays.
Well, we're supposed to be canceling our holidays. That's the suggestion from the powers that be.
Janelle,
I think that's a legitimate point, but I also think it's on any given weekend, somebody could have a wedding or whatever. We can't control all the stuff that happens outside the building. In my opinion, I think we do our best job to educate people and tell people why they shouldn't, and they need to help us help them and control what we can control here.
So can we talk about what was brought up? I don't know who brought it up, but the virtual, but yet sports can still go on. I mean,
When I look at it, go ahead.
Sorry, this is Juli Thompson. My opinion on that, if we are virtual, but we're allowing sports, just reading some of the chat comments, a lot of those elementary parents then would be at a huge disadvantage who want their children in the building so that we can allow high school students to play sports. So where do we weigh the importance? Are we talking numbers in the building? Because then elementary should weigh a little heavier than the high school. Are we weighing athletes more than academics? I'm not sure that that's where I would agree we should be.
I think one of the things that Mr. Lechner or somebody brought up was that it may, some of these middle schooler and high schoolers who are not necessarily tuning in like they should be, that they would do a better job virtually if they had that incentive. I'm not saying I'm in agreement with it. I'm just saying, are we going to discuss it?
Wasn't the idea that if they played sports, they stay virtual?
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
and not bring that back to school.
That wasn't a
So
suggestion.
I think that was misunderstood. So we would be in person, but if you chose to play basketball or whatever, you're a virtual student through season. Is that the idea that I? had-
That was one of
That
the
was an
ideas.
option that was talked
Okay.
about. There hasn't been
And I
any
know
motions or
that,
anything
no,
like that.
I,
That was an option that I know other schools have.
Yep.
I think Landcap, is it?
Mineral Point.
Mineral Point.
Mineral Point. Okay, was one that,
LaFarge is
Yes.
adopting that for the winter as well.
LaFarge's?
Yeah.
Sam Hilby says, from recent experiences before we went virtual, our staff, especially our peers, were stretched extremely thin to the point of exhaustion. I know I, for one, get sick when I get run down and exhausted, and is that exactly what happened? Right before we went virtual, I ended up sick. Now I will do my job no matter what and take extra precautions doing so, but I honestly feel like virtual is the better option with how numbers are in our county. I also have a 7th grade son, so I do see and understand the importance of being in person. I also see how important staying healthy and trying to avoid the risk of contracting COVID is for the health of my family. Fred Jones says, oh, this is Sarah Jones, just throwing out an idea for maybe elementary. And then it's got some ellipses. Jody Imhoff says, why do elementary students have to be on Zoom most of the day? It's hard to get them back after a lunch break and hard for parents that still need to go to their jobs. Sarah says, what about having one teacher doing the virtual and one doing it in class? Seemed being there the last couple of weeks that the class sizes were much smaller, that maybe that would be possible, just an idea to toss around. So the teachers aren't struggling doing both so much. And if a teacher needs to be out, they can do the virtual that week. That was one of the suggestions we talked about today in cabinet, that if we could potentially put all the virtual kids in one teacher's classroom in the elementary, this wouldn't work for anything else. The 100% virtual students in one classroom, then only one teacher has to deal with the virtual, but it's lopsided now. So
Lopsided how?
meaning that
Yeah, numbers.
in person, more kids are here.
Yes.
So that would be like one teacher having a class of like 5 kids and another teacher having a class of 30 kids. So most of the kids are in person. So, and we couldn't socially distance them that way either. So we kind of we thought it through, and it just, it might work for 1 or 2 of the smallest classes, but that it wouldn't work for everybody. And we're still waiting for the digital items that we ordered. So 4K 1 and 2 don't have devices provided by the school.
Julie, do you know when those devices will come in?
Before Christmas is what we heard. They said September, so.
Yeah, that's the sad thing. We went with this company because they said they're available.
they said they had them.
So
They had 'em.
they
They
have the
literally had 'em.
money
Yeah,
and all of a sudden they don't have them.
yeah, because we even went so far as to, we got money set aside to buy like 3/4 of them that night and tell them on the next week we would approve the rest like 5 days later. They go ahead and put our name on, none of them got here, so.
It's very frustrating. Yeah, every school in the whole nation is ordering the same thing as we are, I'm saying. Jody Abarca says it's really hard to have Richland Center and River Valley in person, and we are not when we are a smaller school. And Kaitlyn Mitchell says, I feel the same way as Jody.
I think it's important to remember that our smaller schools in one building congregated together, stem to stern. We don't have separate buildings where people are not coming in any contact whatsoever. The district has done, you guys have done a great job. But the truth is, we could have hundreds of people in one building at a time.
And again, it goes back to, on any given day, we could have 6 or 7 that can't come in, and that will shut us down again. Even if the numbers in the building, even if it's quarantine related COVID, if our adults can't be here, and I don't have enough to cover for supervision,
But you could have that on anything, you know, because like last February, you know, with the flu that went around, you know, we had trouble with staffing too. So that could happen at any moment, at any point, at any year too. As far as that.
Well, those absences are normally a day or so, not 14.
Right, right.
Again, as we have these discussions, like we've been having them since March, everybody sees there are a tremendous amount of moving parts. This isn't a normal, okay, look at this side, look at that side, make an educated decision. There's, you know, it's a Rubik's Cube of constantly moving parts and pieces that we're trying to make decisions off of. And you know, it's not like we make decisions and okay, one side goes away happy, one side goes away mad. You know, 30% go away happy, 70% go away mad. You know, just because there's so many overlapping intricate pieces, I think everybody has to realize that, you know, you've got to weigh a lot of different things and make a decision, and we've all got to try and cooperate and work together and make the best of things. You know, nobody's trying to make these decisions selfishly or for, you know, you just got to kind of, what weighs the most in your, you know, in your opinion or in your conscience. And
Yeah, it's very difficult for every person in the community that comes up and says to me, why aren't my kids in school? I get another one that doesn't come quite so close and says, thank you, because I've seen someone recover not easily over months. It is 50-50. There is not, no matter what decision is made, you're not representing anyone fully.
And I am concerned with the number of staff that are uncomfortable. And I think with the way they have been worked. And of course, I'm very concerned for our kids as well. I mean, it's.
So I just have a question. When we decided to go virtual on October 7th, what was the deciding factor?
I'm not saying anything against you, but I don't think that's a fair question because I don't think for me, that could have been a different thing
Sure.
than
Yeah,
what
yeah,
Ron Boyd, you know what I mean?
So my thought is though, if numbers in the county were one of the helping, you know, to decide it, our numbers in the county have only gone up.
On October 7th, we had 134 active cases. Today we had 189. The teachers brought it up, so I wrote it down.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that is something that plays in, number, statewide, to where like red. We're on the NPR.
I want it to hit Europe again, really, really, really strong again.
See, that's why I don't watch the news anymore.
Well, I can't remember what country. I mean, they're shut down. Nobody's coming in, nobody's going out right now.
Ireland.
Yeah, England is shutting down. London's a ghost
Spain.
town.
And on Spain.
I would like to see the kids here, period. I don't want them to not have athletics, but if they're having athletics, my 2 cents or my recommendation would be that the athletes are virtual by default. I think that will help keep us all healthier in the building. It won't affect the elementary or middle school because we pushed middle school sports off for a while, but that will get everything moving again.
You say at the beginning though that there was no COVID spread with athletes.
Correct.
That's a belief, that was what the WIA or the state study has indicated from.
Right.
And just athletics, of course, as we sit here, is not maybe not a hot topic to us, but I guarantee if you have a child in the district that is of that age, it may be what's most important to them. Now, obviously, that is not, we're, education first. Having our kids mentally healthy may include that athletic component. I know it does for the kids I have in my house. And they thrive better when they're able to exercise and do the thing that they love. And it's a choice, you know? It's not something we require of kids. I think we need to be very careful about taking those things away.
Kristen Rasmussen said, my sister is a 5th grade teacher in Portage. She's a virtual teacher and there's another dedicated to in-person. She said is working great for them. They have more virtual than in person. And Chad Cleary says, when you vote on resuming the fall sports season, football is the only sport left. If we play 2 varsity games, it completes a season. If we do not resume a fall season, it moves to spring. Not good for small schools.
Does he as the coach have a recommendation what he would like to do?
I think you can tell from his email.
Right now. I know, I was just trying to make it explicit.
Any other questions, comments?
I just hope if we do the in-person, we can figure out how to help our staff. Because I think we will lose some. And then we're gonna be where we can't be face-to-face anyway.
Well, not only that, we want the kids that are in the building to have a robust education.
Right, and we have.
It's not, I mean, and forgive me, because I know this is the safe place for some kids, but it is not daycare. It is school, it's regimented, it should be robust and enriching for our kids, not just where you go.
Any questions, comments?
Well, what's it gonna look like? if we do Require the athletes to go virtual. That means they're gonna have to sit in front of a computer from 8 till 3.
Yeah, it'd be just like when we were all in person and, you know, the people who chose to be virtual, that's, you know, scheduled. Are we correct in assuming that? That if we go back to in-person,
Yeah.
anybody that is virtual required or voluntary would be a normal school schedule on the computer, right?
First, yeah, any athlete.
Or anybody who's virtual.
Yes.
Anybody
Anyone
that's
that's virtual.
required, if that's what we do require them, or anybody who's chosen virtual, they would have the same schedule as in-person.
Yes.
Okay.
We would go back,
We had before.
yeah, we would go back to the beginning of the school year, how that's all set up.
I think you kind of got a couple of different things going on. Whether or not that would be a requirement for athletics, or would it go back to in-person and we'd still have athletics? And whether or not we're going back in person or virtual. I think he has probably 3 to 4 different things you'll have to decide on.
And that would be determined by the potential motion.
Yeah.
You could have several different options.
Well, and in returning, and I know it's horrible to go back and forth, virtual one day, not virtual the next, but it's a very real possibility, as Kathleen has said, that we won't have staff. Or could run into that very quickly. I mean, that's also the risk that's being taken going back, is that we may get pulled out again. I mean, people just have to be realistic about it. We can't invent people.
Carolyn Anderson wants to know the purpose of requiring athletes to be virtual. One of the thought, and Kris Willis says, how long would an athlete stay virtual, ending right after a season or waiting period after the athletic season ends, similar to a quarantine time?
2 weeks is what Mineral Point did, I believe. 2 weeks after their last game or practice, I believe is how it was, something to that effect.
And the reason for it, Kathleen, would be that if, we're intermingling with another school district at a game, that if the children were virtual, then they would not be bringing bringing COVID back into the school and infecting non-athletes or staff. they had positive athletes in Mineral Point.
So I don't know of any football player from Ithaca that brought COVID back to the school. I mean, not that it couldn't happen. I think we have to be realistic and not knee-jerk reaction that if students want to be in person, they should be able to be in person and still play sports. I guess you have to weigh the likelihood of someone bringing COVID back. And with football, it's not like, I guess I don't see it as close contact like these some of the other sports. And you are, you know, it's limited exposure. And if kids have COVID, they should be playing anyway.
Yeah, most likely wouldn't be playing anyways.
Yeah.
If the WIA or whatever that study was, the indication of the tracing was that the sports were not a contributor to it. I'm not sure how much data or how data driven that is, or assume that was data driven, but that's what the study results from the WIA stated, was that they have not seen an indication of an increase of COVID due to participation in athletics.
I think that I read the same thing, Ron, and it was data driven, but it was a small sample.
It was a small sample, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I guess as a parent of an athlete, I know how important athletics are, and those students that feel that sports are important are less likely to have the risky behavior to catch COVID, because they want to keep playing sports, they want to stay in school, so they're going to limit the risky behaviors.
Jim Favreau said only one fall athlete went for testing. I don't know how you know that, Jim, but Adam Hess says, will this motion cover basketball and wrestling or just football?
Just football.
We can't even predict whether we're gonna have those other sports now, so.
And then Melissa said, what percentage of our high school would be virtual if all students in athletics had to be virtual?
Yeah.
Well, at this time, it'd just be the football players.
Right, for 2 weeks.
So how would it be, say like, I got a boy in sports and the next boy doesn't? You know, there could be contact like there. One wants to be in school, the other one has to be virtual.
Yeah.
Or do you keep them both virtual? And I know there's other kids out there like that. They have
That's
family
true.
members, you know. So that's an
No
option
offense to
there too, so.
consider. Yep.
So if
Yeah.
we're talking about 2 football games, I don't think you should penalize the football players and have them, force them to be virtual.
Other discussion, questions? Motions?
Mrs. Behrens typed in, students have told teachers that they won't get tested so that they don't have to miss sports.
People are doing the same thing for their jobs.
Yeah.
Just like contact tracing, people are not, you know, they're saying they're averaging 2.3, that was in Grant County, 2.3 responses for infection, that they only had been in contact with 2.3, or it averaged out to a little over 2 people. Well, that's certainly not true.
9% more exposure than that.
But and my daughters even said on campus that the students now are not offering up volunteering who they actually were in contact with, other than the obvious, like their roommates.
Other questions, comments? So am I right in assuming if there's no action taken, the action that was taken before was that we were virtual through Friday? And then we would go back to normal operations and normal the way we were. Unless there is a,
Well, I said that this decision doesn't really affect my family, and there's so many different decisions that the reason I decided to pull the teachers was because I was going to throw my vote whichever way that ended up going. I had 41 responses and 30 of them voted for virtual, so I'm just gonna make a motion that we stay virtual for another 2 weeks.
so there's been a motion to stay virtual another 2 weeks. Is there a second?
Can you clarify? So does that mean
From
one of these weeks or not another 2 weeks from the 30th?
Another 2 weeks.
So through the 13th, return on the
Is that
16th.
what it ends up being? Then yes.
That row right into Thanksgiving.
Oh, I guess if that does,
It
then
doesn't,
It's
it's
the week before.
full
Is it?
week before Thanksgiving.
So your motion is to continue
2 weeks from
virtual
November 2nd, so
through
whatever
the-
November
through
2nd
November
was,
13th.
come back to 16.
16. Yeah.
Yeah,
Is there a second?
16th is a Monday.
Second? Lack of a second, then motion dies.
Yeah.
Any other motions, discussions?
Make a motion that we open up.
I second it.
When?
The SAT.
October 29th, move to approve to reopen in person on October 29th, Thursday, October 29th. I'll leave it at that. No stipulations pertaining to sports. That's, athletes can attend in person. They're not required to be virtual.
So Mr. Briscoe's motion is to restart school with normal activities the way we were before we took the leave and went to virtual starting October 29th, right?
Ron, can I just ask why the 29th and not the 2nd on, come back on Monday? as we-
To get the students back in sooner. We have, I don't know, from an athletic standpoint, there was comments made during online and others here about 2 more games. I don't know how many, I don't know how that plays out. But October 29th, I'd rather see it sooner rather than later at this time, though Monday did, just coming back on the 2nd is a plan B, but I chose the 29th. Because honestly, being out 2+ weeks was a concern to me as it was not being in person.
Sure.
So the motion is to reopen the 29th, resuming activities as they were before the closure. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Manning. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. Manning.
Yes.
Peterson.
No.
Mrs. Rowe,
Yes.
Mrs. Blazinski. No. Mr. Brisboy.
Yes.
Mrs. Variance.
Yes.
Motion carries. Any other discussion concerning COVID?
The paraprofessionals, are they additional staff?
Yes.
I'd like
that's
to
what I
address
was gonna
that.
Bring up. We need to do something for our staff.
Yes, we do.
We can't continue this way.
Do we want to do posting of positions and then at administration discretion and then we formal approval at the next board meeting?
I'd be fine with that. Authorize the administration to post positions
And hire.
and hire.
with formal approval.
How many weeks out is that? What if they can hire sooner and get somebody in the
That's what we're
building
saying.
before
They
next-
would
before next meeting?
approve, they would have authorization to post
And we
and
just make
hire,
it formal after
and then
that.
make it formal,
Okay, I get it.
Yep.
Okay.
formally approve the contracts.
So are we also approving if they would think in a couple of the areas where it's maybe more students in that, more issues with kids getting things done, that it would be a teacher?
We're not gonna.
I have heard a lot about math, that kids struggle virtually with math. I mean, well, and we know it's almost impossible to get a math teacher, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's true.
I would,
But I mean, if we're doing what's best for kids and we're doing what's best for our staff, I like the idea that we're leaving it up to admin, but I don't think it should just be paras if they think we need something more.
Ron, did you make the motion?
I think I did. And I left it open-ended, I thought, but authorization to the, authorize the administration to hire additional staff as needed.
I would second that.
Been moved by Mr. Brisbois and second by Mr. Peterson to authorize administration to hire staff as needed. It doesn't say just paraprofessionals, it says staff as needed, correct?
Correct.
To allow administration, post and hire positions with final approval by the board. So it just says
Formal.
positions.
Formal approval by the board.
Okay.
That could be-
Formal, sorry.
You guys could hire.
Correct. And issue.
So then we're gonna have to look at budget
Correct, you are going to look at budget.
because there's, I mean, you add another staff and benefits, you're gonna have to cut something else.
I know, but we struck gold with the 4 pairs we hired
Well, I don't,
last time.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
I know. I don't know how these school districts are doing it, where they've matched teacher for teacher.
Yeah.
But
Well, they're probably pulling from fund balance.
True.
we have to have our staff safe and comfortable.
Oh, I agree with you. I mean, I'm not saying, I'm just
Just
saying
being
we
devil's
need to
advocate.
think about the
Yes.
budget.
Yeah, I know.
Some of this. Okay, so been moved and seconded, roll call please.
Just a minute. Very good, Julie.
Sorry.
Moving my line. Okay, Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Manning, Mrs. Peterson,
Yes.
Mrs. Rowe,
Yes.
Mrs. Blazinski,
Yes.
Mr. Brisboy,
Yes.
Mrs. Varian.
Yes.
Any other discussion on that?
Mr. Lechner and Ms. Shane, did we bring up all the issues we needed to talk about COVID in the next couple of weeks of school?
I think so.
Metrics, thermometers were the 2 on my list.
Kathleen had brought up numbers, like what happens if, 6 people call her at 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't think we really addressed that, did we?
I don't
Did
think
we?
it's that, just answering from me, you don't know how many it takes to run my business. I would have no idea, if it's 3 missing in elementary and 2 in high school, or if it's, but you know what I mean? I think we've got to leave that kind of up to you guys, and you
It's
guys,
an administrative decision.
yeah, because we,
Just so the parents know that it could, closure could happen at 7 in the
Absolutely.
morning. I mean, that's.
Yeah.
I mean, I try really hard to know the night before.
absolutely,
But
people don't always get sick at some
no, you
point.
wake up and you're like, oh, I feel cruddy.
Yeah, the snowstorm can do that though too.
True.
And so I think they
True.
just have to know that if we don't have enough teachers to teach, we can't open the building up. And that's
The only difference, though, like somebody mentioned, it's not a 1 day.
exactly right.
Yeah.
It's now longer because if it's COVID related,
We can't control that, but I don't think, like I said, I don't think we can put numbers on it because different areas,
that's fine.
different,
Well, now, we, work around everybody,
Absolutely.
but, there comes a point where, you're
That's
gonna
right, you
stretch
guys-
and snap.
you guys get paid the big bucks to know those things. No, but that's why, like I've said before, hire good people and let them do good things, so, you guys.
Mr. Rowdy, to answer your question though, the only thing I needed to bring up was that if you look at all of our teachers' classrooms right now, they're all spread out for virtual and stuff. It's gonna be a little tough to get going by Thursday, I think, because we're teaching virtual right up until that Thursday.
Well, they'll have, yeah.
Cause you know, things are laid out, because high school is 25 minutes, boom, 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 8 hours in a row.
Yeah,
Much. And elementary is like that too.
we could start the virtual schedule, go back to the old Wednesday virtual schedule on Wednesday.
Yes, yeah, is this afternoon prep?
It leaves it less full in the afternoon, yes.
Well, that's not real prep, Ron, because the teachers are,
Well, that's how it was
Small
referred
group.
to in
Right.
this board meeting by staff, by
okay,
administration. They called it in
Right.
that the afternoon was prep.
okay.
We needed time to
And
work
that's the
together.
term that was used
Okay.
to us, given to us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, after 2.
But is that doable to do that Wednesday as the quote unquote old virtual way to give them Wednesday afternoon?
It's
Well, right
possible.
now, we're done at 12:20, then they have lunch till 12:50, so we're just gonna have to get it done.
Yeah, we'll figure out which way
Yeah,
the
we'll
teachers
figure out
want
a
it
way.
at the middle school, high
I just
school,
wanted
and
to
then,
let you know, because they
promote it.
asked me to bring that up.
okay.
Any other discussion on that?
I guess I just had one question on this was a meeting a few times ago. Actually, it might have been the August meeting that I was attending. You guys were looking to hire a full-time sub. Were you successful in hiring full-time subs?
Full-time,
A dedicated, so like that she means,
a
yeah.
dedicated sub. We approved it at the last meeting. They were
The three
gonna,
that we asked have not, nobody has committed to it yet.
so we have it offered a dedicated sub. We approved it and offered the dedicated sub position. They haven't accepted it yet. Right? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So there's a couple more comments. Amy Fry says, seriously, we're putting sports before student health and teacher anxiety. I'm disappointed. Sarah Jones says, I don't think they are going to make 100% people happy no matter what the decisions. So you feel that way. I do hope they can come up with teacher anxiety, help with teacher anxiety and come up with ideas for that. Mr. Favreau says, how do you expect to hire more staff when we can't even find subs? Amy Fry says, I agree 100% with Mr. Favreau. Kris Willis, are we still expecting those who agreed to do first quarter virtual? We are full in the middle school. If more come back, we can't socially distance them. Samantha Hilby says, if we're going back in person, then can't you just leave it coming back to in person on November 2nd? And Juli Thompson says, a dedicated sub can only cover one person though. Excuse me.
And I did want that question answered about whether or not kids can come in and out or.
Right, what-
With what we had before.
My personal opinion on that is no, because when we started the school year, we told them they had to go one way or the other.
Yep.
And that puts way too much stress on the teachers to allow them to go back and forth.
It was said that if they chose to go virtual, they had to stay that way the whole quarter, but I heard revolving door from so many teachers that it was, the parents are just putting them in and taking them out.
And let's not forget that some people are being quarantined and don't have a choice.
Yes, that's different.
You know, that's different. Obviously, that's always gonna be something that's gonna be having to be dealt with, but didn't we say one way or the other?
Right.
Yes.
And I know other districts are having that same issue now where parents they don't want it to be virtual anymore and, you know, but I mean, I think we need to hold to that because, yeah, we wouldn't have the room. We couldn't social distance. And that's all been mapped out.
So basically, if they choose virtual, it's a 14-day commitment for you. I mean, because.
You know, we're talking about the kids that,
I know
from the
that, so
very
let's say
beginning.
that, Jimmy wants, or no, Sally wants to be virtual. But no COVID related, it's 14 days, right? I mean,
I would say if you want to
That's
go
the rest of
virtual
it,
now, you
yeah.
need to go to the rest of the quarter.
If
Because-
it's COVID related, then 14 days.
Yeah,
but see, there's the thing, and I don't want people to lie, because if you're quarantined, there's no documentation that comes from anybody for that.
Oh,
No.
so we don't have proof. see
I
what you're
don't
saying.
wanna
I
put
see
somebody
what
in
you're
a position.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But that student we had already counted to be in the building. It would be the other way that all of a sudden now those that committed to virtual in the beginning, well, now we're gonna reopen the doors, I wanna come back in. Those numbers we can't deal with right now.
No.
because that wouldn't fit into the numbers that we've used, especially in the elementary.
Yeah, and that's why I was asking that. And the discussion is that they say they're struggling, they can't do it, this and that, not virtual. So they'd like to come back. And I brought up all the points that you had said. I said, I'll let you know after the board meeting.
So do we, because if I remember correctly, Kris, it was on a quarter basis, correct?
Yep.
So the quarter ends in 2 weeks.
Yep.
So we would have to revisit it that Monday, which could change, if we have an influx of in-person. Right now, we're set up for the virtual that had determined it initially.
We'll have to do a big media blast for all the families that
Yeah.
are changing their
And-
mind
and
and
we
then
do that.
moving from virtual to in-person to please call the office.
So when was the?
Or and vice versa.
Vice versa.
Next Friday.
I think there will be some that'll switch to the other.
On a regular board meeting,
We
so,
need to know that on the 9th though, wouldn't they, if it ends on the 6th.
yeah, we would, yeah, they should, if, for the next quarter, they should be getting their preference or their whatever, because they would need it to start the next quarter anyways, right?
Yep.
Yep.
So by the 9th, we would know if we've got a problem we need to address.
What do we do about the 9th if a bunch of them want to come back and we don't have a meeting till that night?
Well, we have to rearrange rooms then, is
Okay.
what'll happen.
Like use the multi-purpose room or something for a day or so while you figure it out, or?
I don't know.
We'll have to do a media blast on, have them
Yes,
call the
that's a
office.
Cross that bridge when we get to it thing, I guess. That's-
Oh, we talked about using the old gym too. I don't think that's.
They used it for choir every year.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to come back in person, I don't think we can not allow it.
Right.
Yeah,
So
we just need to be able to plan for it.
Yeah, we'll just figure it out.
Be nice to have as much lead time as possible to do it.
Yep.
Any other COVID-related discussions? Okay, seeing none, 5-4, then discussion possible action on expunging items.
So
What do we
the,
have to expunge?
the pictures are some items from the library, some buckets and magazine holders and some Encyclopedia Britannicas. Some teachers want them in their rooms, but the rest of them we don't want anymore because,
Well, I think it's all online and it's
It's all online.
updated all the time.
The
so,
most recent one was a 2005 World Book.
and the rest of them are older than that, so.
So you just want permission to expunge, is it those items sitting over there?
Yes.
Okay,
I make that motion.
by Mrs. Blazinski, is there a second?
Roll.
Oh, sorry, roll.
I'll go ahead and second it.
Second by Mr. Blazinski. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mannings, Mrs. Peterson.
Yes.
Mrs. Rowe.
Yes.
Mrs. Blazinski.
Yes.
Mr. Brisboy. Mrs. Ferriant. Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Did we get any bids on that bus?
I haven't put it out there because I have
Oh,
not had
okay.
time.
No, that's fine.
Actually, I have my part of it done, but I need someone in the bus garage to tell me, is there cuts in the seat? Is there,
Okay.
so yes, I want it to get going before Christmas, but
Somebody could have a nice Christmas present. Everybody got a 16-year-old kid?
I got this one doesn't drive.
Shelley's like, I got this.
Drivable.
Okay, then 6, then adjourn to closed session under Wisconsin statute 19.51C for consideration employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercise responsibility. 6.1, discussion regarding the performance evaluation of district employee, teaching staff, and coaching staff. We'll be in closed session not less than 5 minutes, but it could be longer.
I'll make that motion.
By Mrs. Peterson, is there a second? By Mrs. Ferriant, roll call, please.
Mrs. Peterson,
Yes.
Mrs. Rowe,
Yes.
Mrs. Blazinski,
Yes.
Mr. Brisboy.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferriant.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Manning.
Mr. Manning.
he's filibustering.
It was moving, so I.
Sorry.
We do that to each other though.
Shelley, crushed by that bus to death.
Our room, sorry. We're in the library.
No.
Oh my gosh. He likes projects like that, so.
I was just gonna say, I saw that, I was like, that looks like something I'll go down on.
Sentimental value. I know, number twelve is the bus they rode their entire school
Okay.
career.
That's perfect then. I thought you were joking.
Not that I want him to buy it.
So I made that announcement about your walk at 3 and it would just be a little slower.
We went for a walk.
Greg called me up. He goes, it was funny.
He did.
You did?
Yeah, Greg.
Yeah.
Somebody-
He's got a good sense of humor.
He does. He's like, Julie, that was so funny.
Yeah, it was just, Jess and I.
Okay. I should learn to stop the recording while we're. All right.
Oh, no, not that. That's got way too big.
Oh, my gosh.
I get a headache for sure.
Pictures from Steve.
Okay, then, 7, reconvene the open session. Motion.
Wait.
By Mr. Brisbois, is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Brains, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're in open session, motion carried. 7.1, the discussion possible action on hiring translator. Recommendation by administration is
William Padilla,
at just,
hourly wage, what was the same wage that our last translator was hired at?
$20 an hour.
okay,
Thank you. Sorry about that.
motion for that
I'll make that motion.
by Mrs. Peterson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
By Ms. Blazinski, roll call, please.
Mrs. Peterson,
Peterson.
Yes.
Mrs. Rowe,
Yes.
Mrs. Blazinski,
Yes.
Mr. Brisboy,
Yes.
Mrs. Variance.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. Manning.
Is that everybody? Yep.
Did I get everybody? I'm sorry.
Yep. Is that everybody right? Okay, then 8, motion to adjourn
Make that motion.
by Mrs. Franks. Is there a second?
I'll second.
By Mrs. Earl, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay.
I'd like to thank the administration team for allowing those boys to run in the cross country. That was a big deal for them, so thanks. Thank you. I actually only had 2 parent calls on that.
Bye, everybody.
I explained to them
Thank you,
why.
everybody.
I never got any other feedback.